Alright, so The Last of Us series must have infected the minds of everyone because it is the biggest show ever right now. And since we covered the history of Joel Miller last week, it's time we move on to his counterpart for a majority of this post-apocalyptic story, Ellie Williams. Yeah, I had no clue that was her last name either, but we're going to be explaining Ellie's journey, fill in the backstory from the comics and The Last of Us DLC, her story in The Last of Us Part 2, and whether or not she's actually the real deal Keir at the center of all of this. Obviously, spoilers for the game and potential ones for the series, so quietly sneak out of here if you don't want those. But please clicker that like and subscribe button as it keeps you updated on all of our Last of Us coverage. With that out of the way though, a huge thank you for clicking this. I'm your host, Jared. Now let's get into The Last of Us. So the first 2 episodes of the series slowly introduce us to Ellie and honestly has been really faithful to the game's source material. Ellie was born after the cordyceps infection outbreak, roughly in the spring of 2019, so with the 10-year difference between the game and the series, it would be 2009 in the series. Anyway, her mother was a nurse named Anna, while her father was unknown. He was never actually identified in the source material, so I don't know, he probably went out and got some milk and just got bit. But unfortunately, Anna passed away giving birth to Ellie, granting guardianship to Marlene, the member of the Fireflies, as she had promised to take care of Ellie in this moment. However, her idea of taking care of Ellie basically meant placing her in an orphanage in the Boston QZ, and later a military boarding school. So for all of those years, Ellie learned the nonsense that Fedra was trying to teach them about the new world, with little knowledge of the old world before the infection. Ellie finally met Marlene when she was 13 years old, learning about her mother and so forth. Now, roughly a year later, when Ellie is 14, is when the game and series introduce her, under Marlene's care, needing to be transported to the other group of the Fireflies. This is also, of course, where Joel and Ellie begin their father-daughter relationship, with neither of them really trusting one another. Joel and Tess take on the job of transporting Ellie, however, are caught by some QC security. As the 3 are being scanned for the infection, Ellie is in a frantic manner and stabs one of the guards, with some slight differences between the game and the series here, but it's revealed that Ellie has been bitten and is infected. However, it's soon discovered that this bite is weeks old and she has yet to turn. This is why Marlene needed the pair to transport her to the other Fireflies, as she's essentially looked at as the closest thing to a cure. In a roundabout way, she is a chosen one in this dark dystopian future. The trio trek out on the journey, delivering this teenage degenerate to the Fireflies so then they can conduct all of this research on her, therefore developing a cure. Now, there are some moments here or there where Ellie mentions how she got infected.
How did you get bit?
You know the old mall in the QZ? I snuck in. Wanted to see what it was like.
So it was just you in there alone?
Yeah.
There's also the mention of a character, Riley, a time or two. All of this backstory and relationship building to this was told in a 4-issue comic, The Last of Us American Dreams, along with the Left Behind DLC. Now let's go back a bit, as the American Dreams comic is set roughly a year before Joel and Tess are tasked with transporting Ellie. Shortly after Ellie's 13th birthday, she is attending a Fedra military boarding school in the Boston QZ. Here, it's kind of hinted that tensions are running a little hotter, as a military guard that knows Ellie tells her that he can't look after her anymore, and she better not try to pull any of her old stunts. Ellie, with the sassy attitude that she has, obviously doesn't listen to this advice, quickly getting into an altercation with a group of boys trying to steal her belongings. Luckily, Ellie is saved by another teenage girl provoking the boys. She gives Ellie advice about the Boston QZ and remarks on Ellie's trust issues before running from other authority figures. At this time, Ellie is tasked with cleaning duties at the school because of her poor rap sheet at previous homes. During a day of cleaning a bloodied Jeep, she realizes her Walkman is missing and that the mysterious teenage girl that she had talked to a couple days ago was the one that snatched it. Ellie confronts her in the lunchroom, getting the Walkman back, but is made fun of for her poor music taste. Later that night, Ellie notices this other girl sneaking out. Ellie follows her and eventually finds out her name is Riley, which if you've played the Left Behind DLC, you of course know this. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself here. But this night is full of firsts for Ellie. As they explore the abandoned mall, Ellie learns to ride a horse from Riley's friend Winston. They help the Fireflies escape Fedra gunfire and later have altercations with both infected and the same Fireflies that they helped. At this point, Ellie discovers Marlene had people watching over her entire life because of the promise that she made to her mother, Anna. Marlene hands Ellie an envelope with a letter from her mother, along with the iconic switchblade that we see Ellie pull out in episode 2, along with her using in the game. This was a gift from her mother, and that's why it's such a treasured memento to Ellie and why she's never without it. This evening of shenanigans, though, was the spark of friendship we later see ignite between Ellie and Riley in the Left Behind DLC story. The two later had a falling out after an argument with Riley disappearing. Ellie was then drafted into the military, unsure whether or not Riley died or was even ever coming back to the Boston QZ. But in the summer of 2033, Riley sneaks back into the school to see Ellie after being gone for roughly 6 weeks. Riley urges Ellie to sneak out, telling her she's become a Firefly now and that the Fireflies are far different from the lying Fedra military soldiers of which Ellie is now becoming. Evading patrols, the pair head out to the Liberty Gardens Mall, the same mall Ellie earlier learned to ride Winston's horse. Here, conversations about their previous fight, their future, their friendships are interwoven with the pair exploring different stores and shenanigans like trying on Halloween masks and taking snapshots in a photo booth. Against Fedra's claims, they return power to the mall and ride an illuminated carousel in the courtyard. Ellie continues to press Riley about her return, with her saying that the Fireflies are actually relocating her to a different hideout, and she wanted to see Ellie before this. Ellie buries her true feelings about this revelation and eventually leads to them playing Ellie's Walkman over a speaker system in an electronics store. The two danced on the counters until Ellie suddenly stops, saddened that her friend is leaving. Ellie asks Riley not to leave with the Fireflies, and Riley responds by taking off her Firefly pendant and dropping it on the ground. Ellie leans in and kisses Riley, but it's a bit embarrassing for her, so she instantly apologizes, but Riley tells her that there's no need to be sorry. The two begin to discuss what to do next. However, the loud music, of course, attracts a group of infected runners to the mall. The two escape a majority of them, taking out one of the last ones, but it's soon realized that both Ellie and Riley were bitten in the run-in and now are infected. Of course, this means certain death, as they discuss ending it right then and there or waiting it out, enjoying the last few moments that they have together. The two decide on the latter option, but after some time, Riley is the only one to fall to the cordyceps infection. Ellie survives, therefore assuming she's immune. Back in Marlene's care, the two realize this is a miracle case, and Marlene plans to take Ellie to the Firefly lab in Salt Lake City. Now this is where we were before jumping back to the comic and DLC stories. Ellie is paired up with Joel and Tess to be transported to the other Fireflies. But now knowing a bit more of her backstory, you can see how she suffered from not only that PTSD at the moment, but also survivor's guilt. Her best friend Riley fell to the infection while she didn't. So yeah, that's some heavy for a 14-year-old to deal with. During the start of this journey, Ellie's trust issues are in high gear because Joel and Tess are strangers. But as time passes, the travesties that they witness together is what brings them closer. Ellie, in a way, can relate to Joel losing Tess after being bitten and infected, and she has a bit of sympathy for Joel's clouded past, especially losing his daughter Sarah on Outbreak Day. Ellie, having never left the QZ, experiences nothing but new firsts, similar to that first night that she snuck out with Riley. On the way to Bill's town in search of a car battery, Ellie has never been in the woods. In Bill's town, she's never seen a comic book. Also a nudie magazine, but moving on. As Ellie and Joel venture from Boston to Salt Lake City, the two each have their bonding and breaking moments. Essentially, Ellie just wants to help when and where she can, while Joel very much pictures her as a helpless child due to his last moments with Sarah. But Ellie is able to have Joel warm up to her, teaching her how to shoot a rifle, open up about Sarah, and also his not-so-moral life in that 20-some years between the initial outbreak and now. Another defining moment for Ellie is when they meet Henry and Sam when trying to avoid the hunters in the Pittsburgh area. The brotherly duo help the pair out, while also giving Ellie someone her own age to actually relate to. A friend, if you will. Up until this moment, a lot of the strangers that they ran into turned out to be vile and have ulterior motives, but the brothers are genuinely nice guys. Ellie even grabs a toy from one of the abandoned shops to give to Sam later. But like most of the other things in Ellie's life, this relationship sours when Sam is infected and Henry ends up taking his own life after losing his brother. This very much reminds Ellie of her survivor's guilt and almost moves the needle more towards Joel's feelings of hopelessness and nothing lasts forever. In a matter of a couple months, this has happened to Ellie twice now. By the end of 2023, the pair finally make it to Jackson County, Wyoming, and find Joel's brother, Tommy. He was supposed to know about where the Fireflies were at, with Joel attempting to actually pawn off Ellie towards him, and then he can just return back to Boston. Though Ellie caught wind of this, frustrated, she ran off. Joel and Tommy found her, but then had to fight off some bandits, which actually caused Joel to kind of have a change of heart, as the two's relationship essentially turned into that father-daughter relationship that we see at the end of The Last of Us Part 1. However, Ellie has to take the lead role of the pair after they arrive at the Colorado University campus, discovering the Fireflies have fled to Salt Lake City, and Joel is brutally injured after falling on some rogue rebar during the fight with some bandits. Ellie barely gets him up and out of there, but then slowly nurses him back to health with scrounged together supplies from an abandoned mall. Ellie later hides Joel in a house near the lakeside resort during the winter months, only leaving his side to hunt for the two. This is where one of the most traumatic events in Ellie's life takes place, when she happens to run into two hunters, David and James. Seemingly normal, nothing to worry about, and teams up with David to take out some of the infected. But then he states that he believes everything happens for a reason, as it's revealed that the people that attacked Joel and Ellie at the university were actually his men, kidnapping Ellie and then revealing themselves to be sadistic cannibals. So, yeah, not great for Ellie right now. David is essentially the inverse of Joel at this point in the story, a man full of darkness, and is hella creepy towards Ellie, referring to her as his special little girl. Ellie is able to escape after cleaving James, but David catches up to her in an abandoned restaurant, pinning her down, and he says she doesn't even know what he's capable of, again being really creepy for anyone at this point, as he begins to choke Ellie out. Luckily, she reaches for a machete and makes mincemeat of David's face. Joel shows up right at this moment and comforts her, but the trauma of this has stuck with her, adding to the ever-growing list of post-apocalyptic anxiety, trust issues, and PTSD Ellie has already gathered, remaining quiet and reserved for most of their trip until Salt Lake City. The only other person that she truly trusts is Joel. The endless amount of events that the two have gone through solidifies Joel as a father figure to Ellie. Joel and Ellie eventually stumble upon the Fireflies held up in an old hospital in Salt Lake City in the spring of 2034, advising Joel had made it there just in time. Ellie had just turned 15 years old and is being prepped for surgery, and finally a potential cure can be researched to stop the infection. However, when Joel discovers that Ellie is going to be essentially sacrificed for this procedure, he can't help himself, eliminating most of the Fireflies, the doctors, and takes Ellie back for himself. It's such a conflicting thing for Joel to do, but also Ellie wasn't entirely aware of what would actually happen to her during the procedure. So it's really a toss-up on whether or not she wanted to go through with things or not. Ellie comes to in the backseat of a car as Joel drives her back to Jackson County. She asks kind of like what happened back at the hospital, not knowing exactly what had played out. Joel now lies to Ellie, saying that there were dozens of immune people and she wasn't needed anymore. Ellie seems a bit apprehensive by Joel's response, but accepts it. Later, when they approach Jackson, Ellie finally reveals to Joel about what had happened that day of the bite and her friend Riley. Ellie again reinforces the survivor's guilt that she has, saying she's still waiting for her time. Joel reassures her that there's always something to live for. She then asks again about everything in Salt Lake City, making him swear he's telling the truth about the hospital, the fireflies, the cure, all of it. After a moment, Joel responds, "I swear," with Ellie accepting it. Now, it's never fully known at this time Ellie's true feelings, but it's absolutely crushing knowing that Joel is basically the only person that she fully trusts, and yet he lies to her, going against all of the trust issues that she's built up. Life in Jackson seems to be working for the pair. Ellie, still suffering from the aftermath of their journey, is a bit more secluded and reserved in their new lifestyle in Jackson. But Joel and her have fully formed that father-daughter relationship that Joel was robbed of after the passing of Sarah. During these next few years, Joel gives Ellie a guitar he found, teaching her how to play here or there, singing Pearl Jam's Future Days for her the evening that he gifted her the guitar. Joel also surprised her with a trip to a nearby museum for her 16th birthday. The highlight of this was Ellie seeing all of the astronomy exhibits, later being surprised with a recording of the Apollo 11 launch and pretending to fly into the stars. In the year following, Ellie became much more involved with the Jackson community, having her own patrol route with Dina and Jesse. Other members of Jackson she befriends, even becoming romantically involved with Dina. However, the idea of the fireflies and the truth of what actually happened all those years ago rattled around in her brain as she rode off to find answers of her own. Upon investigating the hospital and operating room, Joel caught up to her, comforting her because he was worried. But Ellie knows the truth, threatening Joel to tell the truth or she is completely done with him. Joel then lets her know about the vaccine, but how she wouldn't have survived the procedure. Ellie breaks down, again with that survivor's guilt bubbling up to the surface. She had a grander purpose in life, but Joel took that from her. Ellie, completely devastated by this revelation, returns back to Jackson, but there's a huge rift between the pair. Weeks later, Ellie meets Joel at his house to discuss everything once more. Pissed about the saving grace behavior, she scolds him again about stealing her meaningful purpose in life and essentially dooming humanity. Surprisingly, Joel doesn't switch his tone at all, sticking with the fact that if he had another chance, a second chance at all of this, he would do it again. Even though Ellie is wrecked beyond belief, deep down she knows how much Joel truly cares for her and agrees to forgive him, but it's going to be a very slow healing process. On March 2nd, Jesse, out on patrol, meets up with Dina and Ellie to let them know that Joel and Tommy didn't make it back from their patrol yet. In a frenzy, Ellie tracks their horses to the Baldwin mansion, where Joel and Tommy had been essentially kidnapped by a group of passerbys led by Abby Anderson. Now, at this moment, this person is just a complete random, another post-apocalyptic wander buyer. But Abby happens to be the daughter of the doctor Joel shot when rescuing Ellie from the fireflies all of those years ago. Abby and her group were on a revenge mission and finally caught Joel, the man responsible for maybe dooming humanity, maybe? Pleading and threatening them, Ellie is held down by Abby's group as she watches Joel's last breath. Abby grabs a golf club and smashes in Joel's head, ending his life. Ellie, in a panic, promises she's going to get her revenge, but is then knocked unconscious. Joel was 56 when he died and was the closest thing to a father that Ellie had. Ellie and Tommy return back to Jackson after Dina and Jesse found them knocked out. Traumatized by everything that transpired, Ellie swears vengeance on Abby and the group, wanting to gather some of Jackson's manpower and head out to Seattle to track them down. Tommy and Maria explain to Ellie how that's not necessarily the best idea and to just let it go. But Tommy is the one to head out in the next morning without Ellie. Maria was left a note specifically stating not to let Ellie follow him, but wanting her husband back. Maria allows Ellie and Dina to travel after him and bring Tommy back in one piece. Ellie and Dina venture into the outskirts of Seattle, attempting to locate both Tommy and Abby's group members. In doing so, one by one, Ellie proves fruitful in tracking down members of Abby's party, slowly getting one step closer to her goal of vengeance. However, various obstacles pop up in their way, from new forms of mutated infected to the WLF, or rather Washington Liberation Front, a military outfit similar to that of Fedra on the East Coast. During this time of tracking, Ellie and Dina wander into a spore-filled underground where Ellie's mask is broken. Dina wants to save Ellie's life and, offers her mask, but then Ellie finally reveals her immunity to the infection. This, of course, comes as a bit of a shock to Dina, but Dina returns the revelations, letting Ellie know that she is pregnant. With this new information, the pair hold up in an abandoned theater to allow Dina to rest and better formulate a plan. Listening in over a WLC radio, Ellie hears of a disturbance in an area called Hillcrest, thinking that this could potentially be Tommy. Upon investigation, this turns out to be Jesse, who had tracked the pair out to Seattle to help the best he can. Basically, they're forming this nice, lovely family in the Seattle theater as Ellie fills Jesse in on Dina's secret of being pregnant. Ellie leaves the next day on her own, having Jesse stay back and take care of a sick Dina. Ellie again tracks down one of Abby's group members, Nora, to a nearby hospital, and here you almost see the influences of Joel in her, because she interrogates and beats Nora, who is already infected by spores, demanding that she gives up Abby's location. And I think that this is one of the first heavily apparent times in the game of Ellie having to turn into the path of darkness Joel had kind of warned about or hinted at in his some 20-ish years between Sarah's death and when we met him. This drove Ellie to a nearby aquarium where Abby was said to be holding up. Arriving there, she only found Owen and Mel, but was able to get a jump on the pair. Ellie reasoned with them, saying that she wanted just Abby, nothing to do with them at all. But things obviously took a violent turn, with Ellie being the last one standing. Ellie suffers a severe panic attack, though, when she discovers that Mel was pregnant. Unable to breathe or even think straight, somebody says Ellie's name, and it turns out to be Tommy and Jesse looking for her. Back at the theater, Tommy persuades Ellie that she's done enough. It's time to go home. Dina being pregnant is a huge risk for all of them. Tommy heads out to the lobby to make sure everything's all right, checking on things, but is then soon heard fighting with someone. Jesse and Ellie rush to his aid, but Jesse is instantly shot in the face. It is Abby and a young boy named Lev. Abby knows what Ellie has been doing after finding Owen and Mel at the aquarium and says she shouldn't have left Tommy and Ellie alive. A fight breaks out amongst the two different sides, resulting in Tommy being shot in the leg and losing an eye, Dina being beaten and bruised, with Ellie being the last one standing but having her arm broken by the end of the skirmish. Abby looks down and warns Ellie to never cross paths with her again. As Abby and Lev leave, Ellie looks over at Dina, thinking of Tommy and Jesse, contemplating what her actions cost her. The group returns back to Jackson to settle into a more relaxed lifestyle. Though Ellie swears revenge against Abby, she and Dina live on a farm outside of Jackson and raise JJ, Dina's newborn, together. Ellie is still traumatized by everything that transpired: panic attacks, insomnia, PTSD flashbacks to the day she couldn't save Joel's life. Still filled with violence and rage, Ellie decides to put the past in the past until returning from a hunting trip to find Tommy visiting her and Dina. He informs Ellie of Abby's latest location being located somewhere out in the Santa Barbara area and that she can finally get the vengeance that she never got. Tommy would, but in his weakened state of only having one eye now, he wouldn't make it halfway there. Ellie refuses, thinking of the good life that she has now, but Tommy kind of gets the last jab in, telling her to remember the promise she made regarding Joel. Later that night, Ellie can't sleep. She wakes up and plays Joel's guitar, and the memories of him flow out of the guitar, persuading her to go back after Abby one more time. Dina catches Ellie about to leave in the middle of the night, trying to persuade her to discuss it in the morning, but Ellie is convinced no one's changing her mind as she heads out. Arriving in Santa Barbara, Ellie confronts a new threat, calling themselves the Rattlers, forcing information out of one of them about Abby's location. This leads Ellie to a resort that the Rattlers have essentially turned into a base, dozens of prisoners locked up, with them using infected as essentially guard dogs, which that just seems like a bad idea. Freeing some of the prisoners, Ellie learns from one of them that Abby had tried to escape weeks earlier, and in doing so, her punishment was to be strung up on a pillar on the beach, having the incoming tide smash against her and dealing with the elements. This is some straight up medieval as Ellie finds Abby and cuts her down. At the sight of these nightmares, Ellie has a complete change of heart from the vengeance that drove her there and heads for some of the boats with Abby and Lev to escape. But right as the pair are about to shove offshore, the PTSD of Joel's death flashes back in Ellie's memory as she threatens Lev and demands Abby fight her. The two fight in low tide and sand, slashing and punching one another. Ellie appears to have the upper hand, drowning Abby, but Abby bites off two of Ellie's fingers, causing her to let up. Ellie goes even harder now, continuing to drown her, but in an instant remembers Joel playing his guitar, a happy memory of his life rather than the traumatic ending. Ellie lets up, telling the pair to leave, breaking down in tears on the shore. Ellie returns back to the Jackson farm, only to find Dina had left and it is now abandoned. In the end, one of the most heartbreaking moments from the game is Ellie trying to play Joel's guitar. She tries to play the same song Joel was playing the night that she confronted him all of those years ago, but after losing a couple of fingers, it's impossible for her to strum the same tune without messing up. This small thing that connected the two was also taken from her as Ellie breaks down once again, leaving the guitar behind. Honestly, The Last of Us and Last of Us 2 are two of the best video game stories I've ever played. Emotions flew a couple of moments from the second game, and that last guitar scene was definitely one of them. Druckmann and crew did a great job of fleshing out these characters, especially Ellie, a young girl who had this great grand purpose taken from her, only to gain a family, which was then taken from her because she didn't get to fulfill her destined purpose. And the drive for vengeance blinded her and took away the last bit of connection she had with Joel. Absolutely brilliant and gut-wrenching when you think about it. But there's gotta be a part 3, right? I mean, come on. But yeah, obviously, I'd love to hear your thoughts on Ellie. What parts of the game do you want to see brought to live action? And what do you think of Bella Ramsey's portrayal of the character so far? And I'll let you know, we're currently running a competition giving away 3 copies of Wakanda Forever on the 15th of February, and all you gotta do to get a chance of winning this is like this video, subscribe with notifications on, and drop your comment down below on The Last of Us. We pick the comments at random at the end of every single month, and the winners of last month are on screen right now. So if that's you, message us on Twitter at Heavy Spoilers. If you want something else to watch, be sure to check out all of our Last of Us coverage, deep dives, breakdowns, as far as the eye can see. But with that out of the way, thank you for your constant support. I've been Jared. I'll see you in the next one. Take care and peace.